Good day everyone, I am Jesse Arizala. Today, I will discuss about the moral challenges of globalization. Let's define first what is globalization. Globalization is the opening interdependent world with the free transfer of capital, goods, and services across national frontiers. Sabi dito, ang globalization o globalization daw ay isang malaya o pagiging bukas para sa iba't ibang bansa na magkaroon ng interaksyon o pagtutulungan sa bawat isa. Nang sa ganon ay mas magiging madali ang pag-ikot ng mga produkto at serbisyo sa iba't ibang bansa. Sabi naman ni David Mattelman, globalization has significantly reduced the distance barriers, comprehending space and time. So, para sa kanya, ang globalization ay nakakatulong upang mas mapadali ang pag-connect o paglapit natin sa iba't ibang bansa. Sabi nga doon, 'di ba, sa globalization, may word doon na free o malayang pagkakaroon ng interaction sa bawat isa. Para naman kay Anthony Giddens, he state that globalization has linked worldwide relationship that events happening million miles away can affect local events. According to Galinero, the moral challenges that are brought about by the globalization, these are the rise of radical inequality, the problem of managing global and environmental to prevent global ecological collapse, and lastly, the intrusion of international economic organization on indebted nation. First, I'll discuss the rise of radical inequality. The rise of radical inequality, this is the gap between rich and poor. It's becoming even more pronounced. The global financial scenario and the wealth is concentrated in the hands of few, while it leaves the majority to poverty. Simply put, some benefits of the expenses of others. So basically, sinasabi dito is yung hindi pagkakapantay-pantay in terms of yaman niya na nararanasan naman, di ba? Di ba natin ngayon? Na ang mayaman ay mas lalong yumayaman at ang mahirap ay mas lalong naghihirap. The second moral challenges of globalization is the problem of managing global environment to prevent global ecological collapse. Today's world is confronted by a host of environmental problems that carried with them potential planetary consequence, according to Peter Usimiri. It means that some of other countries enjoy their prosperous industrialization while other countries suffer for climate change due to the ecosystem in experiencing rapid reduction in the number of species. So dito naman is ipinapakita ang kakayahan ng isang bansa na ma-adapt o makasurvive sa hamon ng kalikasan o yung tinatawag nating climate change, na kung saan ang ibang bansa ay hindi kayang tugunan itong pagsubok na ito. And last, the intrusion of International Economic Organization on indebted nation. The intrusion of International Economic Organization and indebted nation often raise moral challenges in context of globalization. Critics argue that this organization, such as International Monetary Fund or IMF and World Bank, may impose stringent economic policies that prioritize debt repayment over social welfare, potentially leading to the negative impact on the well-being of the local population. This can be contribute to the income inequality, social unrest, and a perceived erosion national sovereignty, raising ethical concern about the balance between economic stability and social justice. Sabi dito ay nagkaroon ng pagtatalo sa International Economic Organization at ito ay ang International Monetary Fund at sa mga bansang kasapit nito. So, ano nga ba ang organisasyong ito. Ito ay isang pandaigdigang institusyon ng pananalapi at ang ahensyang ito ay binubuo ng 190 na bansa. Dahil nga sila ang humahawak na pandaigdigang pananalapi at sila din ang may kakayahang magpataw ng patakaran sa ekonomiya, at dahil dito ay umapila ang ibang bansa dahil mas inuuna nila ang pagbabayad ng utang kaysa sa kapakanan ng lipunan. Kaya naman dahil dito ay hindi maiwasan ng ibang bansa na mag-alala patungkol sa balanse sa katatagan ng ekonomiya at katarungan ng panlipunan.
So the next topic is all about the challenges of millennials. But before that, i-define muna natin kung ano ba yung millennials. So millennials is a term used to denote the Filipino millennials. So sila yung mga taong pinanganak noong 1980 hanggang 1995. So sila na yung tinatawag nating Generation Y. So, this generation is nahahati siya sa dalawang category. First is yung early millennials, which is mga pinanganak between 1980 to 1987. At yung pangalawa is yung tinatawag na recessionist, which is yung mga pinanganak noong 1988 to 1995. So, millennial generation is commonly characterized by an increased use and familiarity with communications, media, and digital technologies. And kung mababasa nyo rin dyan is yung millennials. So, millennials are those who grew up using electronics, internet, and online social communities. So, parehas lang naman sila. Yun nga lang, dito lang sa Pilipinas. So, millennials is sila yung mga taong pinanganak na umuunlad na yung mga teknolohiya. And, ayun, mga lumalaki na gamit yung mga technologies. So, bago yung generation ng millennials is meron pang mas mga nauna na generations. So, there are 5 generations. The first one is the traditionalist. Ang sumunod ay the boomer generation, generation X, and generation Y, and the last is yung generation Z. So, the traditionalist, born between 1922 and 1945. So, during this generation is nagaganap na yung World War II. So, buhay na sila nun. Kilala rin sila as the veterans, the silent generation, and the greatest generation. So, bakit nga pa sila tinawag na the veterans? They are called veterans since karamihan sa kanila is lumahok or kasali sa digmaang pandaigdig na silang mga naging veterano sa digmaan. And tinawag rin naman silang silent generation kasi kaunti lang yung aktivista sa kanila. And tinawag rin silang greatest generation kasi dahil sa kanilang matinding pagtitiis at pakikibaka sa mga challenges ng panahon nila. This generation experienced Great Depression. So, bakit nga ba nasabing they experienced Great Depression? Na nakaranas daw sila ng matinding depression dahil nga sa naganap na World War II. But, they survived. Next naman is yung sa the boomers. They are born between 1946 to 1964. And they also called baby boomers since sila yung mga pinanganak after ng World War II. So, karamihan sa generation ng boomers is mga anak or mga apo ng mga traditionalist generation. Also, boomer generation described as shockwaves. Kasi tulad nga ng sabi ko kanina, pinanganak sila after ng World War II. Also, sabi nila, ang mga baby boomers daw ay they are not afraid to confrontation and will not hesitate to the challenges. So, kasi daw, masyadong mataas yung confidence nila sa sarili nila and masyado silang independent. So, malaki rin yung paniniwala nila na kaya nilang mabago yung mundo. And also, during this time, umunlad rin yung mga technologies. Dumami pa yung mga technology like televisions, mga TVs, telephones, and others. So, ang generation rin na to is commonly tinatawag na traditional at may pagpapahalaga sa kanilang pamilya at trabaho. So, next is the Generation X. They are born between 1965 to 1980. So, they are also known as Baby Busters, the Latchkey Generation, and the Post-Boomers. So, bakit sila tinawag na Baby Busters? Bumaba yung bilang ng mga panganay. So, yun. And tinawag naman silang Latchkey Generation kasi yung mga parents nila is lagi sa trabaho. So, silang mga anak is naiiwan lang mag-isa sa bahay. So, through that, parang natuto silang maging independent. Also, Generation X, described as resourceful, independent, and keen on maintaining work-life balance. Sila ay lumaki sa panahon ng pagbabago sa lipunan at teknolohiya. So, as a result of that, they tend to be adaptable, independent, at resourceful problem solvers. So, pinapahalagahan nila yung work-life balance nila dahil nakita nila or na-witness nila sa past generations nila yung pagiging workaholic ng mga naunang henerasyon sa kanila. So, they also strive to maintain a healthier equilibrium between their careers and personal lives. So, since tinawag din silang Latchkey Generation, is yung pagiging independent. Since lumaki sila sa panahon nga ng pagbabago at kawalan ng tiwala sa traditional institution. So, because of that, natutunan nilang maging self-reliant at maghanap ng solusyon sa kanilang mga problema sa sarili nilang paraan. So, next naman is yung Generation Y. So, Generation Y, ito na yung panahon ng millennials. So, they are born between 1980 to 1996. So, also known as millennials. So, during this time, yung technology is naging parte na ng pang-araw-araw na buhay nila. So, lahat ng kailangan nilang gawin is, through screen sa paggamit ng mga computers. Hindi kaya ng naunang mga generations dahil sa economic crisis, nire-require nila yung mga tao dito na i-train ng maayos or ng mabuti para makakuha or makahanap ng magandang trabaho. But however, this generation is labeled as lazy, narcissistic, and spoiled. Since, ayun nga, parang hindi na sila kumikilos, inaasa na lang sa mga technologies. And noong 2014, is tinawag silang Me generations ng Time Magazine. And last is yung Generation Z. So, this Generation Z is born between 1996 up to present. They are also known as Zoomers. This Generation Z is kilala sila sa pagiging bihasa sa paggamit ng mga teknolohiya, pagiging creative, at pagiging makabago sa kanilang pananaw sa lipunan. So, karaniwang tinitignan sila bilang mga kabataang may malawak na kaalaman sa teknolohiya at critical na pag-unawa sa mga social issues tulad ng gender equality, social justice, at iba pa. This generation is first generation of digital natives, never knowing a world without the internet. So, sila yung mga lumaki sa mundo kung saan ang teknolohiya ay malalim na nakapaloob sa pang-araw-araw na gawain or pang-araw-araw na buhay. So, madalas silang tawaging digital natives dahil hindi nila naranasang mamuhay sa panahon na walang internet, walang phones, or any social media, wala pang technologies. So, ito is nagkaroon ng malaking impluwensya sa kanilang pagkatao.
Now that you have an understanding about Filipino millennials or millennials and other generations as well, let's now proceed to the discussion of the challenges faced by millennials. First one is technology addiction. Millennials o yung mga kabataan ngayon, fortunate because we are able to witness and experience the technology has to offer. Kung saan dahil sa mga makabagong teknolohiya na meron tayo, ay napapadali nito ang ating pang-araw-araw na gawain. Kumbaga, it serves as comfort and convenience. Pero dahil doon sa comfort and convenience na naipoprovide sa atin ng technology, ay nagre-rely na tayo masyado dito. Kumbaga, nagiging dependent na tayo sa paggamit ng teknolohiya. At doon nagsisimulang magkaroon ng negative impact or disadvantage ito sa well-being ng mga kabataan. According dun sa study that is published year 2017, it is entitled as The Impact of Internet Addiction Among College Students in the Philippines. The study showed that technology addiction has a negative impact on various aspects. First one is yung physical health. Instead na undergo ka ng mga physical activities dyan sa labas, focus tayo sa pag-phone, paggamit ng mga gadgets natin. Sumunod naman dito is yung social functioning. Kakaroon tayo ng less human interaction sa mga tao sa paligid natin. Kumbaga, hindi na tayo nakikipag-bonding sa mga friends or family na nasa tabi lang natin. Mas focus tayo sa paggamit ng ating social media accounts. At lastly, yung negative impact nito sa academic performance ng isang estudyante, kung saan instead na gawin natin yung mga bagay, task na binigay sa atin ng mga instructors natin, is that napupunta ito sa procrastination. We are focused on watching our favorite movies, tapos yung isa scroll lang sa Facebook. Yung oras natin nasasayang sa ganon, kaya napupunta tayo sa sitwasyon kung saan nagka-cramming tayo. Last minute, last day, or last hour, bago tayo magkaroon ng pasahan ng projects or finals exam, is doon lang tayo nagre-review. Nakaka-apekto siya. Hindi na natin nabibigyang priority yung mga bagay na dapat inuuna natin. This one is that millennials also struggle with depression. So, according to the American Psychiatric Association, depression is defined as a major depressive disorder. Sabi nila dito, it is a serious mental disorder that negatively affects how you feel, think, act, and perceive the world. May mga binigay din silang symptoms ng mga taong depressed. Mas makabubuti kung ang isang tao na nakararanas ng mga symptoms na ito ay mag-seek ng professional help rather than self-diagnose. Dahil may mga professionals naman na nagkakaroon ng thorough evaluation and comprehensive interviews para ma-determine if ang isang tao ba ay nakararanas ng depression o hindi. According doon sa study na kinandak year 2021 ng University of the Philippines Population Institute, is that 1 out of 5 Filipinos who experience depression have considered committing suicide. This survey is participated by 10,000 randomly selected youth, and in-examine nila dito yung dalawang mental health factors or indicators. First one is yung depressive symptoms, as well as second one ay yung mga suicidal attempts. Naman that yung percentage of youth often felt depressive symptoms increased from year 2013 to 2021. This survey was conducted in the middle of COVID-19 pandemic, whereby physical and social isolation may have gravely affected young people's disposition. So the third challenge is premarital sex. So it is defined as an act of sexual intercourse before marriage. So So, kung ang dalawang taong ay nagkakaroon ng sexual intercourse na hindi kasal, that means they are practicing this one. So, ano ba ang concern or connect ng mga kabataan sa ganitong bagay? Mag-observe na lang tayo sa ating society. Mostly ang nagpa-practice ng PMS or premarital sex ay mga teenagers. According to the study or results made by the Young Adult Fertility and Sexuality, today, 32% of young Filipinos aged 15 to 24 years old engage with premarital sex. Kasi dun sa study na yon, napakalaking porsyento ng mga kabataan ang magawa engage sa ganitong klase ng sexual activity. Maybe there are certain reasons bakit patuloy nila itong ginagawa, bibigay ng benefits sa kanila. Ang kaso nga lang, premarital sex could also lead to various risks such as teenage pregnancy or unwanted pregnancy, and also having STDs or sexually transmitted disease. So the fourth one is college debt. So sabi dito, it is one of the most draining challenges among millennials, yung college debt or student loan. Now, since college is expensive, kahit hindi naman tayo nag-aaral sa mga high-end universities or private schools, kahit masasabi natin na may free tuition tayo dito sa school na ito, is that issue pa rin ng pera most of the time. Especially dun sa mga taong hindi naman privileged enough para kapag may mga bayarin or ambagan sa school, may mga kailangan kang bilhin na materials, is meron ang bibigay sila agad sa pera for that necessities. Hindi naman lahat privileged enough na may ipon. Mostly sa atin, we are barely surviving. At some point, issue yung financial aspect sa pag-aaral sa kolehiyo. Karamihan sa atin na i-resort to taking out loans para lang maipagpatuloy natin yung ating education. Sabi din dito, most college students hope to get a good job once they graduate and immediately pay back all their loans. But that is not always the case. Minsan, kapag sobra tayong nababaon sa mga utang na ganito, hindi naman agad-agad nakakapagbayad tayo. At naman pa, minsan na nangyayari is that mas nababaon tayo sa mga utang na yun. So, yun yung ilan sa mga common struggles or challenges that is being faced by Filipino millennials. So, sa screen, papakita din natin yung ibang mga challenges na kinakaharap ng mga kabataan. Thank you for listening.
Good day. Our report is about the religious response, the role of religion in ethics. Let's define the ethics. It says that ethics refers to the philosophical concept of morality and endeavors to understand moral concept and justify moral principles. It analyzes concepts such as right and wrong and seek to establish principles of right behavior that may serve as guides to action for people to follow, according to Punchman 1992. Meaning to say, it is what guides us to tell the truth, keep our promises, or help someone in need. We look for what is right and wrong to do. We even question ourselves kung ano ang tama at bakit ito ang tamang gawin. We use this principle of ethics to make decisions in our everyday life. For example, choosing what are things that can help not only you but also the other individuals that surrounded by you. We even do something beneficial to others, not only for ourselves. Another examples are making promises and showing values with respect. For such as being a Filipino, we do our respect by showing some pagmamano and pagpupo at opo when someone older is talking to us. For me, it is really important in our life because it's also a way to have a better life. Living the life with full of positivity and full of values can lead our life to a bountiful places in the earth. While in the other hand, religion is defined as the symbolic system which confers identity and marks out society and ethic and the other boundaries according to Lenman. It is considered as humanity's sensitivity to the ultimate meaning of existence, which springs from his relationship to a transcendent reality, according to Kirkland 1976. In simpler term, when it says religion, it is a set of symbols, rituals, beliefs, norms that provides direction and even meaning to one individual lives with the influence of the higher being. So, the elements of religion are often used to identify groups of people, including their ethnic and social boundaries. Additionally to this, the religion offers a way of people to deeper understand aspect of life and their connection to a higher or transcendent entity of principle.
Okay, let's now proceed to the relationship of religion and ethics. Religion and ethics are two concepts that have been closely intertwined for centuries. While religion provides a set of beliefs and practices that govern a person's life, ethics refers to the principles and values that guide behavior and decision making. Sa paanong paraan nga ba makikita yung relasyon ng religion sa ethics? For many, religion provides a moral compass that helps guide ethical decision making. Religious teaching often include moral codes and commandments that outline what is right and wrong. Sinasabi dito na sa isang relihiyon, pumapasok rin yung ethical principle na kung ano nga ba, dito tinuturo kung ano nga ba yung tama at mali. Ito yung pinaka-guide na sinusundan ng isang relihiyon that symbolizes or mirrored what is right and wrong, especially when it comes to their religion. Ibig sabihin, yung ethics is pumapasok rin siya sa pag pinag-usapan natin yung religion. Providing a framework for ethical behavior. Isang halimbawa ng relasyon ng ethics sa religion is yung Ten Commandments ng Christian faith. Alam naman natin sa relihiyon, meron tayong mga sinusunod na parang rules or guides in order to maintain peace and then mapanatili yung pagiging structured or pagiging maayos ng isang relihiyon, kung saan pumapasok yung mga rules. Katulad ng sinabi ko, yung mga rules. Halimbawa nito is yung Ten Commandments, na kung saan sa Christian faith, it was provided for a clear set of rules for behavior. Ang halimbawa nito is yung stealing and killing, sinasabi na hindi siya makatarungang gawain. Okay, other examples na magpapakita ng relationship of ethics and religion is yung ancient religious ethics. Ang halimbawa nito is yung sa during the Mesopotamia, na kung saan the ethical principles were often intertwined with religious belief. The Code of Hammurabi, one of the earliest legal codes, include moral precepts and laws inspired by the Babylonian god Marduk. Sinasabi na ang Code of Hammurabi is somehow related to the religion of the people during the Mesopotamia. Kasi ang Code of Hammurabi is nagawa para magkaroon ng kaayusan at pagkapantay-pantay noong mga sinaunang panahon. Ang Code of Hammurabi is naka-align sa kung ano yung makakabuti para sa mga tao that time. However, the relationship between religion and ethics is not always straightforward. Different religions may have different beliefs about what constitutes ethical behavior. Furthermore, the interpretations of religious teachings may vary between individuals, leading to different ethical decision-making. Okay, let's proceed to the different views to the relationship of ethics and religion. Number 1 is, sinasabi ng ethics can exist independent of religion. They believe that ethical principles can be derived from reason and experience rather than religious teaching. Sinasabi dito ng ethics can still exist even in the absence of religion. Ang pinipinpoint lang dito sa number 1 is yung ethics can be used by anyone regardless of religion, and those who do not belong to any religion affiliation. Ito yung mga taong hindi naniniwala sa Diyos, o ito yung mga taong hindi kabilang sa anumang uri ng relihiyon, o ang tinatawag natin na atheist or the agnostics. And then, ang sinasabi na this view is known as the circular ethics and has been advocated by the philosophers such as Aristotle and Immanuel Kant. 2. Religion as a foundation. Some argued that without a religious foundation, ethics will lack in firm basis and can be subjected to change depending on the cultural norms and societal pressures. They believe that religious teaching provide a stable and unchanging foundation for ethical behavior. Kung kanina sinasabi dun sa number 1 na ang ethics can still exist even with the absence of religion, dito naman sa number 2 sinasabi na ang religion is mahalaga para magkaroon ng stable at hindi agad mabago yung foundation when it comes to ethical behavior. Okay, despite these differing views, it's clear that religion and ethics have a complex and interdependent relationship. The religion can provide a moral framework for ethical decision making, but it is not the only source of ethical principle. Ultimately, it is up to each individual to determine how religion and ethics intersect in their own lives. Ibig sabihin, tanging isang tao or those individuals makakapag-determine on how ethics and religion affect their lives, especially when it comes to decision making. Okay, let's now talk about the fundamentals of ethics and religion. The first one is faith. Faith is being sure of what we hope for and certain of what we do not see. Ito yung pananampalataya natin sa tinitignan nating tama, na kung saan makikita yung relationship ng ethics and religion pa rin. Kasi 'di ba, sa religion they practices their faith, but syempre nakadepende pa rin yun kung ano yung relihiyon na kinabibilangan nila. Kasi sinasabi na in every religion they practice their own ethical perspective. Next one, beliefs. Religious belief is usually expressed in terms of the holy or sacred. The belief in God, the supernatural, the miraculous, and the sacred is the most fundamental factor of religion. Ethics to belief. Sa relihiyon, meron tayong sarili-sariling paniniwala, wherein papasok yung ethics kung saan sa relihiyong meron tayo nakadepende yung tama at mali. Meron tayong sarili-sariling paniniwala when it comes to our religion. And then yung paniniwala natin na yun is yun yung nagre-reflect sa atin kung ano yung tama at mali, kung ano yung dapat nang gawin sa hindi dapat. One is yung practices. Sa practices naman, ito yung religious practices are considered sacred in any major faith. Religion involves ritual and liturgical practices as well as systems of beliefs. Dito sa practices, ito yung mga bagay na ginagawa natin, mga bagay na alam natin tama when it comes to the religion. And then yung pang-last is yung moral community. Religion is made up of individuals who constitute themselves as a moral community. These individuals are joined together through their common faith. Each religion's community has its own organized structure. Ibig sabihin dito po sa moral community is nabubuo ito dahil doon sa mga taong na pagbubuklod-buklod when it comes syempre sa pagkakapare-pareha ng kanilang paniniwala. And then also yung kung ano yung syempre paniniwala, and then yung pare-pareho sila ng gustong sundin. Ibig sabihin dito sa moral community, alam naman natin when it comes to sa isang isang community, merong mga namamahala, especially sa religion, meron tayong tinatawag na mga yung mga pare, yung mga pastor, yung mga ganyan, yung mga leader na namumuna sa atin, na kung saan ito yung mga nangangaral, nagbibigay ng mga pangaral sa kung ano nga ba yung tama sa mali when it comes to, syempre dun sa specific religion na kabilang ka. Ibig sabihin, ito yung mga leader na gumagabay para maipahatid yung kung ano yung turo ng Biblia or turo ng kanilang relihiyon, when kung saan ito yung susundin ng mga tao, and then maglilid sa kanila sa kung ano yung tama at mali when it comes to their own religion.
Moving forward to the function of religion and ethics, ethics plays harmonious behavior, a vital role in creating peaceful and better society by guiding people toward shared values, justice, social responsibilities, trust, moral leadership, compassion, and by rule of law. By following ethical principles, individuals contribute to a safer, more equitable, and cooperative community where people can thrive. Religion encompasses belief, practices, rituals, and moral guides that connect individuals to a higher power or being. However, it's also important to note that ethics and religion are not synonymous. Ethics seeks to establish moral principles through reason and critical thinking, often without reliance on religious doctrine. While religion, ethical behavior is grounded in belief, tradition, and spiritual beliefs. That's all our report. Thank you.